Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Welcome to my garden. We've got my garden cabin behind where I go Zwifting on the treadmill and the bike. Well, I do normally, but I've got a slight problem at the moment. As you can see, I'm sporting a rather nice compression sock after my calf injury. So what I thought to do today is have a bit of a clear out of my shoes. Well, not a clear out, but a bit of a tidy up. And have a look at all the carbon fibre plate shoes I've got and give you a bit of my impressions of what are my favourites. Now, quite a few YouTubers have done this and so, ranking them, and it's very much a personal preference. I think it's very much down to what you see in a shoe. Now, for me at 53, even calf injuries aside, I still feel I'm quite a competitive athlete. So my number one criterion for racing shoe is, well, how well I'm going to do in a race in them. So that's in the sense of, are they going to help me run any faster than any other shoe? I'm not particularly interested to see whether it's got a nice upper or the sole's going to last forever. Because to be honest, I mean, even if a shoe gave me a PB and I wore it once, it would probably be worthwhile for me, although maybe a bit extravagant. So let's go inside and I'll look at the shoes and I'll talk you through each one and tell you what's what. So in the true tradition of a treadmill being not much used for anything other than a clothes horse, I've kind of used it as a shoe horse for today. And here is all the shoes. Now I'm going to sort of focus on the ones that we can currently get, but I got out all the ones which are sort of vaguely related just to show you. So going from right to left here, we've got the Next Percents, we've got the RC Elites from New Balance, we've got the Endorphin Pro from Saucony, we've got the Alphaflys, we've got the 4% original Vaporflies from Nike, which kind of set off all this stuff. The Hyperion Tempos at the end, as a note to myself that actually can talk about the Hyperion Elite 2, which I've no longer got, but we can really mention that one. And then we've got the 4% Flyknits, the New Balance TC. I won't actually rank them, but I'll put them there as a carbon fibre shaped plate shoe. But they're more of a training shoe, so I don't really want to sort of include them within a sort of racing discussion. Then we've got the Asics METARACER, we've got the Adizero Pro and the Carbon X. All the other ones that I'm aware of, I haven't yet managed to get myself the Adidas Pro. That's the higher stack version of the Adizero Pro. Very confusing naming convention from Adidas. I haven't also got the On Cloud Boom shoe, largely because I thought all the reviews I saw didn't really paint much of a picture of it, and I've only got so much money to spend on these things, so I didn't bother getting that one. And I think the Rocket X from HOKA is probably the next one that's likely to drop. I think I've heard about November, but whether I get that one, I'm not sure, because as you'll see what I think of HOKA shoes later. There's also ones like the Atreo Artist, but I won't include them because only prototypes have been given out for a select few people to review and potentially cut up as they see fit. So we won't include that one yet, but I have ordered that one, so may see that one next year sometime when they've actually hopefully made some. Okay, so what I shall do is I'll take each one in turn and I'll give you just a very quick pros and cons for me of each one. So I've now taken out the shoes, which I'm not going to review. I'm just going to review the current carbon fibre plated racing shoes. So let's take another look at them. So we're down to just the 8 shoes. I've left in the Tempos as a placeholder for the Hyperion Elite 2s. So we've actually got 8 shoes that we're going to rank. These are the ones I've actually worn and feel I can make some sort of comment on. So unfortunately for HOKA fans, I have to put the Carbon X as my 8th and last shoe. The pros and cons are, I think the pros for me, it fits quite well. It's not overly expensive compared to some of them, but that's probably about where it stops. Cons are that it just feels really harsh to run in for me. I've run about 40 miles in them and I had a few attempts to sort of run quickly and about a few 10-mile efforts that I've been sort of going along at sort of steady pace or trying to pick up the pace, and I just didn't feel that it was a sort of particularly comfortable shoe to run in, and I don't think I would ever contemplate running a marathon. It just seemed so, I wouldn't say it was very uncomfortable, but just a challenge, and I just didn't feel that it was really doing a lot for me. So number 7 on my list is a bit of a cheat because I've actually got the Brooks Hyperion Tempo up here because I haven't actually got the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2, which is the shoe I really put at 7th in my category. The reason for that is, which I'll link into my review video of it, that the maximum size that they came in it was only a 12, and I think I needed at least a 12.5, if not a 13, and 13s are what these Tempos are. But the part of the reason of putting up the Tempos, that I actually felt when I did actually get out for a run with it, although it was a fraction small, and that was obviously clouding my view, the cons of it is I thought after a few miles I just felt like I was running one of these, and of course these are, I think, are about £140 retail, and the Hyperion Elite 2 is about 210. So I really didn't think I was getting a great deal of value of money for my investment, and it's a very expensive shoe to buy when you think it's not really any better than the one that's sort of about £70 cheaper. And I have to say I didn't really enjoy this one. I put it above the Carbon X because, you know, it wasn't a bad run, and if I think I've had the right size, it may have been one or two higher, but part of this is to downgrade some shoes that just aren't suitable for me, and that includes not having my size in the first place. So moving on to number 6, and this is the Adidas Adi Zero Pro, the low stack one, not to be confused with the Adios Pro, which I haven't ranked because I haven't actually got and haven't run in it. So pros of this one, it's not a bad fit, even though it's probably half a size too small for me. Probably comes up slightly longer than some of the other Adidas shoes. Had a reasonable long run in it, and I'd done one Strava segment in it, which wasn't too bad. The cons are that when I did a test of it, it tested no faster than any of the other way cheaper shoes in the Adizero range, like the Boston 9, the SL20 and the Adios 5. So I'm paying, what, £160 for this one. I was getting no better performance in it than a shoe costing almost half the price. So I was kind of thinking, well, not exactly a great indictment of the shoe. And also I felt like it was quite slappy on foot, and I didn't really think that I would ever wanted to run too far in it. I did a half marathon training run in it. It wasn't too bad, but although it wasn't too badly cushioned, I felt like there were better shoes for the job. Just to say, so far I've run 36 miles in this one. Probably continue to use it for odd sessions and runs, but it isn't my favourite shoe for sure. So on to number 5 when we come to the Asics METARACER. Now, the beady-eyed may have you've noticed that I've gone through all the sort of shoes which are the lower stack version. And I think of all the lower stack versions, this one is just sort of marginally my favourite. I think largely because it's just slightly lighter than the other ones, although it's still slightly heavier bizarrely than the next percent, even though it sort of looks a lot more minimalist. And then when I did a test of this one with the Adizero Pro in the next percent, I kind of felt like I was slightly easier to run a bit faster in inverted commas than it was in the Adizero Pro, although it's still sort of noticeably slower for me in the next percent, even at half marathon and pace, which isn't exactly hanging about. So I think the cons of it as well is that it's quite a sort of a relatively harsh shoe, and it's sort of a shoe that, although it's obviously designed as a racer, I didn't have the best experience of it running sort of like a steady pace. So in terms of like a training shoe, I think it would only come out on your sort of faster days. I haven't yet, to be fair, run a sort of a half marathon training run in it at a decent pace, and when I recover from my calf injury, I'll be keen to do that, to give it a try. As I see, I've only actually run 23 miles in this shoe, so it's not really a great test of it yet, but it's promising. But I mean, all these sort of stories I hear of people saying they're going to use it for a 10k, 5k, I just don't believe it. I think I've said before in previous videos that my favourite shoe, which I'll come on to later, I can use it for any distance I want, literally from 100 metres up to the marathon. And this one, well, yeah, it's not bad, but I mean, it's not going to be any faster for me, as indeed I've tested whatever distance, as far as I can tell so far. So now number 4 is the New Balance FuelCell RC Elite. Now this is a slightly difficult one to rank because I've only just got this one, and I've only done a couple of short runs at not a very fast pace. So my review of it so far is a bit clouded by the fact that I haven't really given it a full blowout. But I certainly feel that it's nice and soft. It's nice and cushioned, and it's certainly the shoe that you feel like you would want to run in it for a certain amount of distance. I feel like it's felt like quite similar to a TC, but like a lighter version of it, and I've enjoyed the TC. So I think this one is going to be good when I recover to have a faster go, and it may well end up being a bit higher up the list than it is, but I can't really rank it any more than 4th at the moment, given the lack of experience of it. One thing I did think that maybe a slight drawback, it did almost feel a bit too soft. Certainly that's what I felt of the TC initially. So I'll be keen to see how that actually pans out in practice when I take it out for a longer run. And is the softness of it actually a help? I can't honestly say that it's going to be a shoe that I would necessarily reach for a race one, with still 3 more shoes to come in my list. But as I say, a bit early days, but I'll have it as 4th place for now. And I'll do a proper review of it as and when I can. So now we come into the top three, and you may have guessed that the two left are both from Nike. It was actually quite close between my second and third favourite shoe, and I got this shoe. Had to buy this shoe in from America. It cost me a lot of money in customs charges, so I was thinking that it's probably one of the most expensive shoes I've bought. But I was glad I did, actually, because I had a very enjoyable couple of half marathon training runs at it at quite a good clip. I think I did just under 1:30 for a half marathon training run. It certainly felt when I put it on, it was the best shoe other than the ones I haven't yet mentioned. And I did a three-way test of this one and with the Next Percent and the Alphafly, and at sort of very fast pace downhill. I know that it just came in slightly slower than the other two. It certainly wasn't bad. And I also feel that this is a shoe that I feel I could do quite a lot of good training runs in it. It felt reasonably comfortable at sort of steady pace as well as faster paces. So I think it's quite versatile. I see I've actually got this one up to exactly 50 miles now. And I've also got the Speed, which is quite a similar shoe in a lot of ways, and I'm actually quite enjoying that one as well. And I've actually got that one over 100 miles now. So definitely a winner from Saucony. But whether it's really going to take the crown of the Nikes for me, well, unfortunately not, because this is third and I've got two Nikes to come. So my number two shoe, and the shoe that was definitely the easiest to fit on my treadmill up there, because it's probably the heaviest of all these shoes. For me, this one, the left shoe comes in at 302 grams, and bizarrely the right shoe comes in at 306 grams. And in my UK 13, which I take in most shoes, although the Adidas is a 12.5 and the Asics is a 12, all the Nike ones are 13, as is the Saucony ones. This one is the only shoe of these 8 races that comes in over 300 grams, so it is the heaviest one. So that's partly why it is number 2 to the Next Percent for me. When I got it, I went out for a half marathon training run at quite a hard effort and quite a hilly course, and I got a sub 130 effort. It probably would have been worth like about a 125, I think, in a race. And I certainly noticed on a course like that although it was nice to run and nice and cushy, certainly when I was going up the hills, it felt like quite sort of noticeably heavier. And then coming out of corners, sometimes it was a bit slow to accelerate. And also the fact that the fit for this isn't great, although it's a very hard shoe to get on. Bizarrely, once you've got it on, it's actually then becomes for me quite narrow. And if you look very closely there, how close those tongues are, that's how much I have to pull this in to actually get a good lockdown. And there's quite a lot of folding on the top of the shoe as a result. So that's why, largely, although it's probably slightly more cushioned than the Next Percent, I don't think it's quite as nice for me to run in, and that's why it is my number 2 shoe. And it was quite close actually between this and the Endorphin Pro. I think on some days I'm actually before the Endorphin Pro. So I was just wanting to go out for a nice little sort of more cruisy run, but wanted to pick up the pace a bit. I think that shoe might be better. But certainly this one, it's a good shoe, but it's also very expensive, isn't it? And if you can actually get it, so that's why it's number 2. Not quite hitting the mark for me. And my number 1 carbon fibre plated racing shoe is the Next Percent, and this is probably my favourite shoe of the moment of any shoe. This is one of the few shoes I've actually got more than one pair of. I've actually got 6 different pairs of Next Percent, and I've still got 2 in a box. Initially I got a UK 12 size before they actually did a UK 13, and as soon as the UK 13 came out, I thought it was my lucky day and grabbed that one as soon as I saw it. And so I now use the UK 13s out of choice. And I've used it basically for all my races for the last year, including my marathon of 2:56 in Seville in February, which is the acid test really of a carbon fibre plated marathon shoe, how it actually holds up in an actual marathon. Although it was my slowest ever time on age graded, it was my second best on age graded. Only my PB in 2:33 was better on age grading. So in that sense, it worked very well. But not just that, I find it an incredibly versatile shoe. I actually used one of my older pairs for the local 5-mile sort of part road, part multi-terrain virtual 5-mile race in the summer, and had a really good run in that. So I'm just adding up the amount of mileage I've done across the 4 shoes that I've actually got in use with those other 2 in the box, and it's almost up to 450 miles over the 4 shoes. So I think other than maybe the Turbo 2, that's probably more miles I've run in any other shoe for some years now. So why do I like the Next Percent so much? Well, I think just basically when you get it on your feet, you just immediately feel a bit of a wow factor, and you just feel like you're just ready to run fast. And I remember doing a part run once by the seaside where I did sort of close to 18 minutes or sort of a solo time trial some way behind the guy who was in head. And I went out for a sort of easy sort of 5 mile warm down. I was looking at my watch thinking I'm hardly moving, I was in about 7:10 pace without even feel like I was trying, with not much wind around. So it's the sort of shoe that just makes you want to go fast, and it just fits me so well, even though this one is like one of my newer ones. I've only done about 10 or so miles in this one, and I do get a bit of folding up the top here, but such good lockdown across here. And this material is so great. I remember doing a race, 10k race in Christchurch last December, and they had like a water splash. Well, there's no problem at all with an Exocent because the water would just sort of bounces off it. So it's ideal for that sort of conditions. I've never had a problem with traction either. People say, oh, it's difficult to corner in it, but I mean, ultimately, how many corners do you really have in a road race? Because most of the time the aim is just run fast in a straight line. And if it's a really sharp corner like one in a bike time trial, then take half a second to have a little breather is my motto, and get around it quickly and carry on. Races are won or lost on the corner in the middle of the race, and not as if I'm going to be winning many races these days anyway. So, I hope you found my little view of my 8 carbon fibre plated shoes interesting. Well, 7 now, I've sent one on the back, but we won't dwell on that. I'll see if I can get hold of the Adidas Pro at some point. Not so sure I'll bother with the Rocket X from HOKA, given the fact that the other HOKA offering was at the bottom of my scale. So if you found this interesting, please consider subscribing. I'm heading towards 1,000 subscribers. That's my aim for the end of the year, when I sort of started this thing at the beginning of the year. These sort of things are a bit of a challenge to me. I don't find sort of talking to the camera the most natural thing I do. I've always been quite a shy person, much heavier in a sort of a spreadsheet beavering away at, or some program for Power of 10 or Run Britain rankings. But I do enjoy sort of talking about running, and especially shoes in particular. So once again, hope you found this interesting, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye.